I came home from the doctor that afternoon, tired but relieved. The sun was low, that soft golden hour light spilling across the street. My hands were full. My purse, my cane, a small bag of prescriptions, and a paper cup with the last bit of coffee that had gone cold during my wait at the clinic. It was an ordinary day, one of those quiet, simple days you don't think will turn into anything important. But when I got to my front door, my key didn't fit. At first, I thought maybe I grabbed the wrong key off my chain. I stood there on the porch, fumbling with the ring, squinting in the light, trying again and again. The key wouldn't go in. It just stopped short, like the lock itself was rejecting me. I tried the side door, then the back door. Same thing. That's when I knew. They changed the locks. My own house. The one I raised my kids in. The one I paid off after 30 years of working double shifts and skipping vacations. I stood there on the porch with the wind moving through the trees, feeling that strange mix of confusion and disbelief. I remember whispering to myself, no, this can't be right. The curtains were drawn tight, the lights off. My son's truck wasn't in the driveway, but his wife's car was. For a second, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they had to change the locks for some reason. Maybe they'd left a spare under the mat. But when I lifted the mat, there was nothing. Not even the little stone turtle I used to keep there. They'd moved that too. I stood there for a long time, knocking softly at first, then harder. Hello? It's me. It's Mom. Nothing. My voice echoed against the door. It was so quiet, you could hear the rustle of leaves and a dog barking 2 houses down. After about 5 minutes, I stopped knocking. I just stood there, hand on the doorknob, feeling the weight of everything sink in. I could smell the faint scent of the lavender candle I always used to light in the evenings. It was like the house remembered me, but the people inside didn't. I sat down on the porch step, slowly, because my knees aren't what they used to be. I put the coffee cup down beside me and just stared at the door. How could they? That morning before my doctor's appointment, I'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Told them I'd be back by 2 p.m. I even reminded them to take the chicken out of the freezer for dinner. It was an ordinary day. I had no idea it was going to be the last time I'd use that key. As the hours passed, I just sat there. I watched as the mailman came by, gave me a little nod, dropped letters into the box, and moved along. I didn't even say anything. I just sat there like a ghost who didn't realize she didn't live there anymore. It started getting chilly. The wind picked up and I could feel it through my sweater. I reached for my phone thinking maybe I'd call my son, but when I opened it, I saw the last message from him. From 2 days ago. It was short. Mom, we need to talk about the house soon. I hadn't known what he meant then, but now I did. I tried calling him. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. Then I called my daughter-in-law. It rang twice before it went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What would I even say? Hey, I'm sitting on my own porch because you locked me out. After a while, the sun started to dip behind the trees. The sky turned orange, then pink, then that deep blue that always makes me feel small and quiet. I sat there until the porch light flicked on automatically. I'd set it that way years ago. So I wouldn't come home to the dark. I laughed a little when it came on. It was one of those hollow laughs that don't sound like you. Guess it still remembers me, I whispered. Around 7:30, I saw headlights pulling into the driveway. My son's truck. For a moment, I felt relief. I thought, okay, now he'll explain. This must be some misunderstanding. He got out of the truck, slow, like he was expecting me. His wife stayed inside. I noticed that. Mom, he said, looking down at me on the steps. Hi, I said softly. I couldn't get in. He sighed. That long, heavy sigh people do when they don't want to face something. Yeah, he said finally. We had to change the locks. I just stared at him. Had to? He rubbed his neck and looked everywhere except at me. We talked about this, remember? You said you might move to the senior apartment place. I said I was thinking about it. I interrupted. "That's not the same thing." He nodded like he was trying to convince himself. "We thought it was time, Mom. You've been struggling a bit and, the stairs, the bills, everything. We figured..." "We?" I said. "Who's we?" He didn't answer right away. "Me and Julie." I felt that familiar ache rise in my chest. "You and Julie decided that for me?" He shifted his weight, like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Mom, it's not like that. We're just trying to help. You can stay at the assisted place for a while. I already moved some of your stuff there." My mouth went dry. "You what?" He looked at me then, just for a second, and I saw it. That guilt, but also that stubbornness. The kind people get when they think they're doing the right thing, even if it's breaking your heart. "Mom, you'll be comfortable there," he said. "They've got meals, activities, nurses if you need them. It's for the best." I couldn't even speak. I just sat there, gripping my cane, my fingers trembling. "For the best," I whispered. "For who?" He sighed again. "Please don't make this harder than it has to be," I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't a funny laugh. It was one of those sharp, broken ones that come out when you can't believe what you're hearing. "You changed the locks while I was at the doctor," I said. "You didn't even tell me." He ran his hand through his hair. "We didn't want to upset you before your appointment. You've been under a lot of stress." "Upset me?" I said quietly. "Son, you locked me out of my own home." He looked down, mumbling something about responsibility, about safety, about how he was doing what any son would do. But I wasn't really listening anymore. I was too busy looking at the house. My house. Through new eyes. The porch I'd swept for decades. The windows I'd washed. The little crack by the mailbox where my husband had accidentally hit it with the lawnmower years ago. Every inch of that place was mine. And suddenly, none of it was. When he finally left, he said he'd come by in the morning to take me to my new place. I watched his truck pull out of the driveway, taillights fading down the street. Then I sat there until the porch light flickered out. The bulb must have finally burned out. And that's when I realized I was sitting in the dark, outside a house full of memories, but no longer welcome inside. I didn't cry that night. I thought I would, but I didn't. Maybe because I was too stunned. Maybe because some part of me had already known it was coming. Still, it's one thing to know your world's changing, and another to find yourself locked out of it. When the nurse finally called my name, I felt lightheaded. Maybe it was the lack of breakfast, or maybe it was just the weight of everything sitting on my chest. I told myself to focus on the appointment, to not overthink what might be happening at home. It was just a simple checkup, nothing major. I chatted a little with Dr. Collins. He's always been kind to me. He told me my blood pressure was a bit high and gently reminded me to take it easy, to stay away from stress. I remember forcing a smile when he said that. "Easier said than done," I told him. Afterward, I stopped by the pharmacy to pick up my medication. I even grabbed a small packet of cookies for Ethan. He always loved the oatmeal ones. I thought maybe if I brought him a little treat, it would make up for me missing breakfast with him. It was around 11 a.m. when I finally headed home. I remember humming quietly in the car, tapping my fingers on the steering wheel. The morning had gone well enough. I was looking forward to sitting down, having tea, maybe watching something on TV before the afternoon chores. But when I pulled into the driveway, something felt off. The curtains in the living room were drawn. They were never closed during the day. The car belonging to my son and his wife was gone, which wasn't unusual since they both worked, but there was just an eerie stillness. I got out, walked up to the front door, and put my key in the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again. Maybe I wasn't lining it up right, but no matter how I wiggled it or pushed the door, the key wouldn't fit. For a second, I thought maybe the lock was jammed. I leaned closer, squinting. That's when I realized it wasn't the same lock. The shiny brass color was different, newer. I froze. My hand trembled slightly as I touched it, hoping somehow I was imagining things. But I wasn't. They had changed the locks. My mind immediately raced through possibilities. Maybe they lost their keys and had to replace them. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. But even as I tried to come up with reasons, deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I knocked on the door. No answer. I rang the bell. Silence. I circled around to the back, but the gate was locked too, with a new padlock. My chest tightened. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. I stood there for a while, unsure what to do. Then I called my son. It rang a few times before going to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing, I sent a message. "Hey, honey, I'm home from the doctor. Looks like the lock's changed. Is everything okay?" No reply. I tried his wife next. She didn't pick up either. At that point, I sat on the porch step, my purse beside me, the little packet of oatmeal cookies still inside. The cold breeze brushed my face, and for the first time that day, I felt something close to panic. After about an hour of waiting, I called again. This time, my son finally answered. "Mom," he said, his voice flat, tired. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, trying to sound calm. "I just got home and, well, the key isn't working. Did you guys change the locks?" There was a long silence. "Yes," he finally said. I blinked. "Oh, okay, why? Did something happen?" "Mom," he sighed. We needed some space for a while. Things have been kind of difficult, and it's been stressful for everyone. We thought maybe it'd be best if you stayed somewhere else for a bit." I didn't understand. My stomach dropped. "Stayed somewhere else? What do you mean? This is my home. Mom," he said again, his tone sharper now. "It's our home too, and things haven't been easy since you moved in. You know that." I felt my throat tighten. "What did I do wrong, Michael?" "I try to stay out of your way. I cook. I clean. I take care of Ethan when you're busy." "It's not about that," he interrupted. "It's just you being here all the time. It's a lot. We just need some peace, okay?" Peace. That word hit me like a slap. "So you locked me out without telling me?" He didn't respond right away. Then he said quietly, "It was easier this way. You'll understand eventually." I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but I couldn't. My voice wouldn't come out. "Where am I supposed to go?" I whispered. "Maybe you can stay with Aunt Carol for a while," he said. "Or maybe at a motel. Just for a bit, until things calm down." Aunt Carol lived 2 towns over. She was kind, but her place was small, and she had her own health problems. And a motel? I had barely enough savings to make it through the month. "Michael," I said softly, "please, let me come in. We can talk about this." But before I could say another word, I heard him sigh. "I have to go, Mom." Then the line went dead. I stared at my phone for a long time, tears welling up in my eyes. The world around me felt heavy and quiet, like everything had slowed down. I stood up and knocked again, even though I knew it was useless. The sound of my knuckles against the door felt hollow, almost mocking. When no one came, I sat back down on the porch, hugging my purse to my chest. I stayed there until the sun started setting, hoping maybe someone would come home. Maybe it was all a mistake. But the lights inside never came on. That night, I slept in my car, parked right in front of the house I used to call home. It wasn't comfortable. My back ached, my neck hurt, and the cold crept in through the windows. But I couldn't bring myself to drive away. I kept staring at that front door, half expecting it to open, but it never did. In the morning, a neighbor walking her dog stopped and looked at me with pity. She didn't say anything, but I could see it in her eyes. She knew. That kind of humiliation burns in ways you can't explain. Eventually, I drove away, not because I wanted to, but because sitting there made me feel like a ghost, haunting a place that no longer wanted me. I didn't know where to go. I just drove, aimlessly, until I ended up in the parking lot of a small diner on the edge of town. The waitress there, a young girl with freckles and kind eyes, smiled at me. "You okay, ma'am?" she asked. I almost said yes, but the word wouldn't come out. Instead, I just nodded weakly and ordered coffee. When she brought it over, I wrapped my hands around the warm cup and tried to stop them from shaking. That diner became my safe spot over the next few days. I'd sit there for hours, nursing a single cup of coffee, just trying to make sense of everything. I thought about the years I had poured into raising my family, the sacrifices, the late nights, the love, and now they had shut me out like I was a stranger. The worst part wasn't the door being locked. It was realizing that, to them, I no longer mattered enough for a conversation, an explanation, or even a goodbye. Still, even as I sat there feeling completely broken, something inside me whispered, "You're still here." Maybe I had nowhere to go yet, but I was still breathing, and as long as I wasn't done. I stayed at that diner for what felt like days. Not all at once, but long enough that the waitress, whose name I later learned was Sophie, began to remember my order before I even sat down. She'd smile gently and say, "Coffee, right? 2 sugars, no cream?" I'd nod, and she'd pour it without another word. That small kindness kept me steady, because when your whole world falls apart, it's the smallest acts of warmth that start to stitch the pieces back together. The first few nights after they'd changed the locks, I stayed in my car. It wasn't safe and I knew it, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. I parked near the diner, or sometimes by the park, where the streetlights flickered just enough to make me feel less alone. I'd wrap my coat around myself and close my eyes, pretending I was home again, hearing the faint laughter of my grandson. In the hallway, the sound of dishes clinking in the sink, the warmth of belonging. But reality always had a cruel way of waking me up. The ache in my back, the chill that crept through the car window, and the realization that my own family, the people I had given my life to, had decided they were better off without me. On the 4th day, I decided to visit Aunt Carol, just like Michael had suggested. She was surprised when she opened the door, her frail hands clutching her cardigan. "Goodness, Sarah! What are you doing here? You look exhausted." I forced a smile. "They, changed the locks, Carol. Said they needed space." Her mouth fell open, and for a moment she didn't know what to say. Then she hugged me, a soft, trembling hug that made me want to collapse in her arms. "Oh, honey," she said quietly, "you can stay here as long as you need." Her house was small, just 2 bedrooms and a narrow living room that smelled faintly of lavender and old wood, but it felt safe. She made me tea and we sat together on her worn-out couch, watching the sunlight stretch across the floor. I hadn't realized how much I missed simple conversation until that day. We talked for hours, about old times, about her garden, about how fast the years had flown by. But even in the comfort of her home, I couldn't stop thinking about my son. I kept hoping he'd call, or maybe text. Something to tell me that it was just temporary, that they'd let me come home soon. Days passed, then weeks. Still nothing. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart leapt. But it was never him. Just spam calls or appointment reminders. It was during one of those long, sleepless nights that I truly began to understand what it means to lose not just a home, but your place in someone's life. I would sit by the small window in Carol's guest room and watch the world outside. Families walking their dogs, children playing, people laughing as they carried groceries into their homes. And I would wonder, what did I do so wrong? I replayed every conversation, every moment, searching for something, anything, that might explain it. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find it. One afternoon, Carol and I went to the local grocery store. It was a simple trip, nothing special. But while we were in the checkout line, A little girl behind us accidentally dropped her candy. I bent down to pick it up and handed it back to her. She smiled at me, that pure, unguarded smile that only children have, and said, "Thank you, Grandma." Her mother quickly apologized, flustered, but I just smiled. "It's all right," I said softly. I like the sound of that. That moment stayed with me. It reminded me that kindness, even from strangers, can heal parts of you that you didn't know were broken. A few days later, Sophie from the diner told me about a small community center nearby that offered volunteer opportunities. "They're always looking for people to help with meals or activities," she said. "You'd be perfect. You have that comforting presence." At first, I hesitated. I wasn't sure I had the energy or the confidence, but something inside me whispered that maybe this was exactly what I needed. So the next morning I went. The community center was lively, filled with laughter, conversation, and the smell of coffee brewing. I introduced myself to the coordinator, a cheerful woman named Nancy. Within an hour, I found myself in the kitchen helping to serve lunch to a group of seniors. They were all chatting, sharing stories, teasing each other about who got the biggest slice of pie. For the first time in a long while, I laughed. I didn't even realize it until one of the men at the table, a sweet, talkative gentleman named Harold, said, "That laugh of yours could brighten up the whole room." I blushed, feeling something warm bloom in my chest. That day turned into a week, and the week into a month. Volunteering gave me purpose again. I made friends, real ones, who didn't see me as a burden or a problem. They just saw me. Carol would often watch me get ready to leave for the center, a soft smile on her face. "You're glowing again, Sarah," she'd say. And she was right. I wasn't the same woman who sat crying on that porch weeks ago. I was rediscovering myself, not as someone's mother or grandmother, but as me. Still, sometimes, late at night, I'd lie in bed and think of my son. I'd wonder if he ever thought about me, if he missed me. And though the pain hadn't gone away, it had softened. I had found a quiet kind of peace in knowing that I was still capable of love, even if the ones I loved most had turned away. One morning, after a few months had passed, I received a text. My heart skipped a beat when I saw Michael's name on the screen. "Hey, Mom," it read. "Can we talk?" My hands shook as I typed back, "Of course." He asked if we could meet at a small cafe downtown. Neutral ground, I guessed. My stomach twisted with nerves, but I agreed. When I got there, he was already seated, looking tired, older than I remembered. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize him. He stood up awkwardly when he saw me. "Hey." "Hey," I said quietly, sitting down. There was a long silence. He stirred his coffee, eyes downcast. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't handle things right, Mom." I looked at him, my heart thudding. "You locked me out of my own home, Michael. You didn't just not handle it right. You broke me." His eyes glistened with guilt. "I know. And I'm sorry. I thought we needed space, but I went about it all wrong. It's just, Lisa and I were fighting a lot and..." I raised my hand gently. "Stop. Don't explain it away. Just tell me the truth. Did you ever stop to think about what it would do to me?" He exhaled heavily, rubbing his temples. Every day since then. I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. But another part, the part that had slept in a cold car and cried on a stranger's shoulder, couldn't forget. He asked me if I'd come back home, but I didn't answer right away. Because somewhere between that locked door and the community center, I had realized something important. Sometimes peace doesn't come from the people who hurt you. It comes from forgiving yourself, for loving them anyway. I looked at him and said softly, "Michael, I'll always love you. You're my son. But I can't go back to that house. Not now. Maybe not ever." He nodded slowly, tears forming in his eyes. I understand. And maybe for the first time, he actually did. After that meeting with Michael, I sat in my car for a long time before starting the engine. The city moved around me. People walking by with shopping bags, a young couple laughing as they crossed the street, a man sweeping the sidewalk outside the bakery. Life as usual carried on, indifferent to the small heartbreaks that unfolded quietly between people. I stared at my hands resting on the steering wheel. They looked older, thinner, the same hands that had once buttoned his little shirts before school, that had clapped at his first piano recital, that had held him close after his father died. And now, those same hands were shaking from a pain I couldn't quite name. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even anger anymore. It was grief, the quiet kind that doesn't scream, doesn't demand, just sits heavy in your chest until you learn how to breathe around it. I didn't cry. Not that day. I just drove home to Carol's, parked outside, and sat for another hour, watching the evening light fade across the houses. When I finally stepped out of the car, she was standing on the porch waiting, holding 2 mugs of tea. "He came to his senses, didn't he?" she asked softly. "In a way," I said, sitting beside her. "But I'm not sure I did." She didn't push. Carol never pushed. She just handed me the mug and let me sit there in silence, listening to the crickets, watching the stars blink awake. That night, I realized something. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't even mean letting someone back in. Sometimes it just means deciding that you deserve peace, even if they never say sorry the way you hoped they would. The next morning, I went back to the community center. I needed something to keep me grounded, to remind me that not every door that closes is the end of the story. Nancy, the coordinator, noticed I looked tired. "Rough day?" she asked as I tied on my apron. I smiled faintly. "Just a long one. But I'm here," she nodded approvingly. "That's all that matters." The kitchen was already buzzing, people laughing, pots clanging, steam rising from the soup pots. It felt alive. It felt like belonging. As I ladled stew into bowls, Harold shuffled in and took his usual seat. He waved at me with his cane and called out, "Sarah! You've got that light in your eyes again." I laughed softly. "You think so?" He winked. "I know so." That day was one of the first where I didn't think about my old house, or the key that no longer fit, or the photo albums I'd left behind. Instead, I thought about the present, the warmth of community, the gentle rhythm of helping others. And for a while, that was enough. Weeks turned into months, and I found myself busier than ever. I helped organize food drives, taught baking classes for the seniors, and even started a little book club on Wednesday afternoons. People started calling me Miss Sarah at the center. It made me smile. It sounded affectionate, respectful, whole. One afternoon, while cleaning up after lunch, Nancy approached me with a small envelope. "This came for you," she said. It was a letter from Michael. My heart skipped. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. I took it to the park behind the center, sat on a wooden bench, and opened it slowly, afraid of what might be inside. "Mom," it began in his familiar handwriting. "I've been thinking about everything. About you, about what we did. You didn't deserve that. Not after everything you've done for us. Lisa and we've been trying to work things out, but I think we both know we can't fix what we broke with you so easily. Still, I wanted to thank you for not yelling, for not hating me, for being kinder to me than I ever was to you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope one day when you're ready, you'll let me visit." I held the letter in my trembling hands. The words blurred through my tears. For a long time, I just sat there, letting the wind carry away a few drops that fell onto the page. Then I folded it carefully and tucked it into my purse. That night, I didn't feel angry or sad. I just felt still, like maybe I'd finally reached the quiet part after the storm. Over the next few months, life continued to unfold, gently, peacefully. Carol's health began to waver, so I took over more of the chores around the house. I cooked for her, read to her in the evenings, and made sure she had her tea the way she liked. Strong, with just a touch of honey. Sometimes, she'd look at me and say, "You're getting stronger, Sarah. I can see it." And maybe I was, because one day, as I stood by the window watching the sunrise, I realized something simple but profound. Maybe family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the people who see you when you feel invisible, who offer warmth when the world turns cold. I had found that in Carol, in Nancy and Harold and Sophie from the diner. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew this. I wasn't waiting by locked doors anymore. A few weeks later, I received another text from Michael. Just 3 words this time. "I love you, Mom." I stared at it for a long moment. Then, with a steady hand, I replied, "I love you too. Take care of yourself. No promises, no expectations. Just love. Simple, quiet, and enough." That night, I sat outside on the porch with Carol. The sky was painted with soft orange and violet streaks, and the air smelled like rain. She looked over at me and said, "You know, maybe life's not about finding the people who never hurt you. Maybe it's about finding yourself after they do." I smiled. "I think you're right." And in that moment, for the first time in a long while, I felt whole. Time moves differently when you stop counting the days by disappointment. It's been almost a year now since that afternoon at the doctor's office. The day I came home and found my key no longer worked. Sometimes it still feels like yesterday. Other times it feels like a lifetime ago. I've learned to live in smaller moments. The sound of the kettle boiling in the morning. The way the sunlight lands across the kitchen counter at just the right angle. The smell of rain through the open window. Little things. Simple things. But they mean everything now. Carol passed away a few months ago, peacefully in her sleep. I was by her side, holding her hand. She was one of the kindest souls I've ever known. And I'll always thank the good Lord that our paths crossed when they did. She gave me a home when I had none. And even after she was gone, I could feel her presence in that house. Like she was still making sure I didn't feel alone. The house felt emptier after that. But instead of packing up and running from the silence, I started talking to it. I'd make my coffee and sit on the porch, just like we used to, and say good morning out loud. To her, to the world, to myself. And slowly the silence started to answer back. Neighbors would wave as they walked their dogs. The mailman would linger a little longer to chat. Sometimes the kids from across the street would stop by with cookies they'd baked with their mom. I found that life, even after loss, has this funny way of keeping you company, if you let it. A few weeks ago, I was volunteering again at the community center when I saw a familiar face walk through the door. It was Michael, my son. He looked nervous. Older, too. Maybe life had worn him down a little, just like it had me. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there with his hands in his pockets, looking around like he wasn't sure if he should even be there. Then he saw me, and his eyes softened. "Mom," he said quietly. I froze for a second, my heart caught between love and fear. But then I smiled. "Hi, Michael." He took a step closer. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me." "I didn't know either," I said truthfully. "But you're here. That's something." We sat at one of the tables and talked. Really talked. Not about blame, not about the past. Just talked. He told me about the divorce, how he'd moved into a small apartment, how he'd started therapy after everything that happened. He told me he'd been ashamed, that he didn't know how to face me after what he'd done. I told him I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired of missing him. We didn't fix everything that day. Some wounds take more than a single afternoon to heal. But when he hugged me goodbye, it wasn't awkward or forced. It was familiar, like a piece of something I'd been missing finally found its way back to me. That night, I sat outside again. Same porch, same stars, same cool breeze brushing against my face. I thought about everything that had happened. The heartbreak, the loss, the quiet rebuilding of a life I never expected to live. And then I realized, maybe the locks on that house were never the real door I needed to open again. Maybe it was this one, inside me. The one that had been closed off to hope, to trust, to love. Because even when people hurt you, even when they walk away and leave you standing in the dark, life has a way of sending you light again. Sometimes it comes from strangers, sometimes from neighbors, and sometimes it even comes from the ones who left, finding their way back. So, if you're listening to this right now, if you've ever felt left out, forgotten, or shut out of a home you built with your own heart, I want you to remember this. You still belong somewhere. You still matter. You still have time to build something beautiful again. Because love, real love, doesn't end when someone locks a door. It finds new ways to reach you. I used to think my story ended the day I stood on that porch, holding a useless key. But now I know that was just the beginning of another kind of homecoming, one that started inside my own heart. So thank you for listening, for staying till the end, for sharing this little piece of my journey. And if my story touched you in any way, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to the channel, because there are so many stories like mine. Stories of heartbreak, hope, and the quiet strength it takes to keep going. Maybe together we can remind the world that no one deserves to be locked out of love.